Hello, everyone. We wanted to take a quick moment to thank you all for joining us today. This podcast was recorded and is made available to you by Whitley Penn LLP and WP Wealth LLP solely for informational purposes. The information, views, and opinions expressed in this podcast are general in nature and are not intended to be construed as the provision of financial or investment advice by Whitley Penn or WP Wealth. The information discussed in this podcast is accurate as of the day it was recorded, but may then become outdated over time. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions, comments, or concerns in regard to the content presented. Thank you again for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode in our WP Cares series. I'm Shane Miller, and I'm a partner at WP Wealth, which is the wealth planning group associated with Whitley Penn. Our WP Cares series highlights charitable organizations in our community, and we are very lucky today to have Helping Restorability CEO Vicki Niedermeyer join us. Vicki, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about this organization for a couple of reasons. I want to share, or I'd love to have you share your role within the organization, how you got started, a little bit about your mission. But the way I got connected to you is actually through someone who works within your organization who called me about charitable gift funds and had some questions, and we kind of connected the dots that we knew some of the same people. I actually ran into her at church the other day. She
Oh,
watches my son at Sunday school. So
oh, wow.
Debbie McGee. So
Yes. And I
Debbie, if
believe
you're
you go to the
listening,
same church that I go to because I go to the same church.
there you go. There you
Yes.
go.
It's a
Well,
small world.
yes, absolutely. Well, I want to get into it. So maybe give us a little bit of overview of what helping restorability is, how you got involved in it, how this all started, and really what your mission is.
Okay. Well, Helping Restorability was started in 1977 under a different name. We've changed names since that time. At the time, it was called Handicapped Resource Association. And it was started by the last person to be diagnosed with polio in Tarrant County, a young man named Sam Province. Sam had spina bifida and was confined to a wheelchair. And actually, that was a step up for him. He originally lived the first 11 or 12 years of his life in an iron coffin or an iron lung. It kind of looks like a
Mm,
coffin. So, but it's an iron lung, and it's just essentially like a metal box with his head sticking out that helped his body compress his lungs and force air out, and then breathe with some assistance. And
mm,
so over time, he was able to get out of the iron lung and get graduate to a wheelchair. Back in those days, this is in the 70s. They had a belt that would go around a person's torso, and it would actually squeeze the air out of the person, and there would be a machine on the back, an engine that you would, it kind of made a hissing noise. And then he taught himself to frog breathe, which is essentially what it sounds like, gulping air in between those compressions that machine was physically forcing his body to breathe outside of the
wow.
iron lung. And so that just tells you the amount of determination and strength of character that person had.
Yeah.
I was never able to meet Sam before he passed away. He passed away in his early 30s, but during that time, he started our organization, and he also was instrumental in starting HandyTran, which is the transportation system here in Arlington for people with mobility impairments and disabilities. So
Mm,
he did an awful lot in his brief time on this earth. And so the mission at that time was to help people with disabilities, primarily in Arlington, but then expanding beyond Arlington, to live and work and play just like every other citizen in Arlington, Texas, without any barriers or impediments to them fully living their lives in their home,
mm,
and helping people stay in their homes with support that's needed, and out of nursing homes and assisted living facilities and that type of institutional care. So our mission has remained the same. We are about to celebrate our 45th anniversary this spring. But for 45 years, our mission has been helping people stay as active and healthy in their communities as long as physically possible, and out of institutional care. Because nobody ever says, I want to grow up and live in a nursing home. It just isn't, that is not where people want to be or need to be. They want to be at
Yeah.
home with their families.
Yeah. So how do you connect with those people? Where are you plugging in to meet their needs?
Well, in Texas, there are programs that are for people with long term disabling conditions that are called Medicaid waiver programs.
Mhm.
And those have changed over time. But today, about half of the population that we serve, we have about 1,000 people that we're serving day in and day out. And our services are around the clock, because people need help around the clock.
Mhm.
But we the people that come to us, typically have been referred and already screened by a doctor that has determined that that person is in need of in-home support services, is what it's called. And so the doctor will verify, what their diagnoses are, the types of assistance they need help with. There are what's called activities of daily living, and those are non-medical things that all of us do. We eating, drinking, bathing, moving around, called ambulation or transportation. So eating, bathing, grooming, dressing, trans ambulation, toileting. I'm leaving one out, but you get the gist. It's non-medical, just things that we need to do on a daily basis. And if you need support in 3 of the 7 activities of daily living, then the state considers you to be at risk of institutional care and qualifying for in-home support. Here in Texas, most of the programs have waiting lists, and some of them are quite extensive and others are not nearly as long. So part of what we do is help educate people about how to access those waiting lists, which ones might be best suited for their particular needs, and then guide them into, how do you get on the waiting list for what you specifically need. For example, some of the programs are only for children. So if you were to, fall off your roof putting on Christmas lights over the holiday season and break your back and need in-home care, I would not refer you to the medically dependent children program. So
Right.
looking at age, what your diagnoses are, what activities of daily living you need help with, and then kind of helping you narrow down the options that are available to you, and then talk you through, okay, this one has a 10-year waiting list, but this one has a 6-month waiting list. So let's go ahead and get you on all of the waiting list, because the various programs do differ in the type of support that they offer. Some may just have basic care. Others may include things like therapies and nursing. So they all have differences. And so we might get you more immediately the basic care that you need while you're on the waiting list for the program that has more options, including things like nursing and therapies. So just helping that person figure out where to go, how to determine what supports are out there. And then, as I said, that the Medicaid waiver programs are one option, but then there are also local resources, as you know, that we can kind of create a patchwork quilt of, okay, while you're waiting for your name to come to the top of the waiting list for this more comprehensive program, you can reach out to area agency on aging if you're of a certain age and they have support services, or a number of different other local resources, cancer care or things like that. So our job really is to not only know about the state programs and get you in a place where you are able to access those, but also to look at that patchwork quilt of what are local resources that might be available. Are some churches have outreach ministries that we're aware of. So just trying to support that family as best that we can. And whether it's something that we do directly or if it's just through helping you navigate where to get what you need to remain in your home.
Mhm. In my line of work, we help folks fairly often with long-term care insurance. So I'm
Mhm.
familiar with the activities of daily living. So do you find that most people are coming out of pocket for the care centers, or are they leveraging some sort of long-term care insurance, or do you help support them in a financial aid capacity?
No, all of our programs are those that are through the Medicaid waiver services. So they've already
Gotcha.
been
Okay.
determined to be eligible. They've
Yep.
come to the top of a waiting list, um, and they are now choosing what agency is going to deliver those services.
Okay.
We also do some private pay, as you mentioned, out of pocket,
Mhm.
and so that's called CalaCares. That is a separate little part of what we do because, as you know, we're a nonprofit, but
Mhm.
offering, if we have staff going into people's homes, helping with the bathing and dressing and feeding and that sort of thing, whether you're being funded by the state waiver program or you're paying out of pocket. And as you mentioned, some people have long-term care insurance, which will offset the cost of that daily care. So we are open to doing any and all of that. Would welcome any opportunity to talk with any listeners about any of those types of supports that we can provide for them.
Yeah. And I found that, when people do need that type of care, it's not something you ever plan for, right?
No.
And unfortunately, and that's when, it goes 0 to 100 real quick of, wow, I have these needs now and the costs are eye popping and, just understanding that whole world,
Right.
um,
Even people
yeah.
who have been in our services for a long time, if their health condition changes and they need to go into an assisted living facility or a nursing facility, it can be very difficult to determine where do I go? What
Mm.
is the best place for what I need that provides quality care? And there are ways to determine that. But until you're in that situation, it's a whole different world that you don't have a reason to know anything about until suddenly you need to know everything and you need to know it right
Right. Yeah.
now. Yeah.
So when did you get involved with the organization? How long
I
have you
came to
been with
Helping
them?
Restorability 20 years ago.
Okay.
This is my 21st year. My background was I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I have master's degree in psychology and specializing in applied behavior analysis. And with that, I knew that I wanted to work with people with disabling conditions. I really didn't know where I was going to work, but I knew that I'm passionate about people and helping people. And so my first job, which I was there 17 years, was at the local MHMR center. Back then it was called Tarrant County MHMR Services. I think now today it's called My Health, My Resources of
Mhm.
Tarrant County, MHMR of Tarrant County. And I started there when Governor Ann White was closing state schools here in Texas. And Fort Worth State School was out where the Resource Connection is now. And the governor named that as one of the facilities to shut down and to place people that had been living on that campus in neighborhoods and in communities so that they were, able to live a life similar to you and I. And at that time, I was the residential director of MHMR for people with intellectual disabilities. And so I worked with the transition closure director, who I actually graduated from um, uh, school at UTA with our masters in psychology together. So she and I were well versed. We were great friends. And so she worked with the people living on the campus to determine the best place for them to live in the community. And it was my job to build or buy or find homes in neighborhoods and move them there. So I did that. I was crisis team coordinator there and worked with all the psychiatrists and things like that. Left there in 97. And then I went, I was executive director of a nonprofit in Dallas doing
Mhm.
foster care and supported employment for people with intellectual disabilities. And then I went to Lena Pope Home, where I was the training director for foster and adoptive families, with specializing in children that were difficult to place and children with special needs.
Mm.
And then when the state rearranged the services here in Texas, the foster care was really struggling to provide quality care. And a lot of services were reallocated to different entities throughout the community. And so the Lena Pope had 600 children that moved elsewhere away from Lena Pope. And so at that time, I started looking, okay, how do I apply all the knowledge that I've gotten at this point? And Helping Restorability had the CEO position open. So I applied there and I've been there for going on 21 years now.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And you mentioned to me that uh, this is a part of your family. Your husband also has a passion for for nonprofit work, and he's with Recovery Resource Council, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And
Yep. All in the family. We kind of
that's
jokingly
right.
say, both organizations get 2 CEOs for the price of one.
There you go. Yeah, that's a deal.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the questions that, is we've been talking about for the past couple of years is obviously the pandemic has changed the way everyone's doing business, specifically nonprofits. There's volunteering and fundraising and actually serving folks in close proximity, and that must have changed drastically. Um, for your organization. Could you maybe tell us a little about how that has changed?
Well, of course, it has dramatically impacted us at Helping Restorability. We are in the healthcare field. So the fact that we have employees that we send to people's homes, we already knew about the importance of protective equipment,
Mm,
gloves and masks and things like that. That's a normal routine part of our world. So
mhm,
in some ways, we were better prepared than a lot of other types of businesses and companies were, because we already had those vendors that we work with, and we already had the training in place for our employees. So in that regard, I guess we were sort of one step ahead. But in terms of having to deal with a global pandemic, that certainly was a horse of a different color.
mhm,
And our state and local and federal governments have really stepped up to support the needs of organizations like ours, to provide us, like, there's an emergency um, storehouse of protective equipment that's available to agencies like ours, that we, when early on in the pandemic, when people could not find gloves initially, and,
mm,
and they were nowhere to be found, we were able to tap into that national emergency storehouse of protective equipment. So it really it has impacted us in terms of educating our clients, because our clients are either elderly and or have long-term health issues already. And
mhm,
so keeping them safe, you've got somebody going into the home daily and helping them with, get bathing and dressing and feeding. And you can't do that remotely. It's
mhm,
just not possible to touch a person remotely and take care of their physical needs. And so our administrative staff immediately began working remotely, and we were very fortunate that we had already invested in the technology to be able to do that. And that was through the generosity of local foundations that had supported us. But our caregiving team really just we shored up on the personal protective equipment and the training, but they were really already well versed in that.
mhm,
So it impacted us in ways that we weren't expecting. But honestly, some of those things have been silver linings in the cloud, if you will.
mhm.
I mean, I think we've all learned a great deal during this period of time, and some of it will stay with us for a very long time and has created some efficiencies and some better ways of doing things, honestly.
Yeah, I would imagine with the pandemic, it emphasized the importance of an organization like HRA. Yeah.
Yes, our clients more than ever really they understood the value of what we brought to them, but especially with the pandemic out there, the extra steps that we went through to keep them safe.
Mm,
I mean, it truly is life saving for them. Exposure to something like that. Unfortunately, we did have some clients that did pass away, as the general population did. So we saw a higher uptick in the number of deaths that we have seen over the course of the last 2 years, but not anything that wouldn't have been the case had they not been our
right.
clients, because we're so careful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about. I know that you all over the community, and you're helping all these folks. Is there volunteering, fundraising? How could somebody who's maybe listening to this that says HRA sounds amazing? How do I learn more? How do I get involved?
Oh,
What's
sure.
the first place to go to kind of dip your toe in HRA?
Well, our website is www.hra, and then the state spelled out texas.org. So it's
Hmm.
HRATEXAS.org. You can learn all about the various programs and services that we have available there. And our phone number is 817-469-1977. And as I said earlier, we really want to be the resource for Texans, to be sure that they have what they need as they're facing, as you said, oftentimes it's a very sudden change in their lives and they have so many questions. I get phone calls from social workers at hospitals, even that are, those social workers are well versed in what's available in the community, but sometimes even they struggle to find the right resource for people. So I talk to school districts and special ed departments and hospitals and nursing homes and assisted living facilities and all sorts of people, and just people that have had a sudden change, or as boomers, baby boomers are increasingly taking care of their elderly parents. That is a huge need, a lack of information out there for how does a son or a daughter support their aging parent to age in place safely. So we are one of the Tarrant County is rife with so many wonderful, we're blessed with so many resources here. And so oftentimes it's just telling people, okay, I getting their story, hearing what the situation is, what are the immediate needs, what are the more middle term needs, and then those long term planning needs, like for example, setting up a trust or a will, or things like getting guardianship if someone's about to turn 18 and not cognitively capable of making decisions. Just that whole kit and caboodle of everything that is a part of that world that is so difficult to navigate. I've been doing this for many, many years. And that's one thing I love about my job is almost every single day I learn about some new thing in the community, some way to help people. And if I'm still learning decades later about the resources out there, there's no way that somebody could immediately know all of that. So, we are your community resource. We're happy to help you walk through the struggles and your questions.
And having experts like you wouldn't even know what to Google, right? And so having somebody that says, well, here's really what you need. You're gonna Google yourself to death, but this is really the thing that's going to steer in the
we
right
can just
direction.
listen to the story and have enough history and knowledge within our staff to. There's every now and then I'll say, okay, I got one I can't solve, and I'll throw it out there to the team and go, what do y'all know? Because we're mighty as a village. Somebody will have the answer. And it's so you could go down a million different rabbit holes trying to find and spend hours and hours and hours, when if you just tell us your story in just a few minutes, we can we can help you. Okay, let's here's what you need to do, here's who you need to call, and help you walk down that path.
That's so valuable. And we see people who are taking care of their aging parents, right?
Yes.
And that is such a burden to put on children, right? And I think that people who are taking care of their parents realize that, then they begin to plan. When some of these situations pop up, you don't really get an option, right? You're all of a sudden in it. So well, I know that you've got a big event coming up at the zoo.
We do. We're very excited to finally be back in person.
It's called Hoorah.
Hoorah.
April 22nd. Tell us about Hoorah. What's that about?
It is so much fun. It's at the Fort Worth Zoo. And if you purchase a VIP ticket, then you get to come an hour early, or the doors will open just for the VIPs at 6:00 on April 22nd. And you get to feed the giraffes, and then they'll have people walking around in the little safari outfits. And we did this 2 years ago, pre-pandemic. And they say they bring out the animals that wake up happy that day. So I really wanted to see a sloth, but they were like, well, we'll see if the sloth wakes up happy that day. But they had a hawk, and then an owl, and then one guy who I stayed away from had this massive yellow snake draped around him. But they just walk around and interact with the people that are there to celebrate our organization with us, and the kids get to learn all about the owl, and it's really fun to watch and experience. And then the doors are open for everyone at 7. It's an outdoor it's a roof over it, so if it was raining we could still hold it. But then it has like a pavilion, I guess is what they call it. And there's food and drink, and we have a massive silent auction and a wine pool. You'll meet some of our clients and some of our caregivers, and we just have a wonderful time. There'll be photos taken, and I think we have a photo booth or some professional photographers there. And we just celebrate all. Right now, we'll be celebrating surviving the last 2 years and actually getting to be there in person. It'll actually
Yeah.
be hybrid. It'll be in person, and if you wanted to participate virtually, because some people really,
Mhm.
are not yet comfortable, then you could do that as well. So we're going to have a
Very
hybrid
cool.
option this year.
Well, that's after April 15th, so hopefully I can bring some of our Whitley Penn folks and we could
After
be
tax
there.
season is over
That's
for you.
right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and hopefully we can see a happy sloth, and I would be
Yes.
okay if the snake was upset that day and didn't want to come out. So
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. It's
Very
a lot of
cool.
fun.
So, 20 going on 21 years at HRA, I'm sure you've seen some really incredible moments and you've seen what a difference you made in some people's lives. Are there any, kind of moments that you're really proud of seeing your team work through or see
Oh
some
my
outcomes that
goodness.
have just been life changing?
The best part of what we do is getting to know the people that we serve. It
Hmm.
is an I it just fills me up, and
Yeah.
all of us that work at Helping Restorability, it's not just a job. I mean, we see people's lives change in such powerful ways. It's just it's really is a blessing to work there. I'll give you one example of a woman that I so admire in her career, her professional life. She was an HR professional,
Mhm.
and she retired, but she is on a ventilator. She is confined to her home, as you can imagine. But when and she has caregivers pretty much around the clock for
Mhm.
years and years and years. But she gets with her caregiver, and when the legislature is meeting in Austin, she is such a strong advocate. She has made the trip to Austin before with her
Wow.
caregiver to testify, and specifically for her, she is very concerned about the lack of awareness of home-based options for people that need ventilator care.
Mhm.
Because typically that's not the norm that someone on a ventilator can stay in their home. She has grandchildren that come visit her, and she's able to live her best life despite being on a ventilator. But that is not it is not well funded, and it is not there's not a lot of attention paid to the amount of training that's needed. Someone who's on a ventilator literally depends on every breath what their caregiver is doing for them. I mean, they essentially
Wow.
keep them alive. And I believe she's in her 80s now. She's been honored here locally. We've nominated for her for awards and things like that. She's just an amazing woman, and
Yeah.
you just can't be around her without feeling inspired and even more committed to doing what we do, because
Very cool.
she's such an inspiration.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
awesome. Well, I wanted to just kind of get your thoughts on where HRA is going and I mean, obviously April 22nd, we've already marked our calendars for hurrah, but what are some of the big projects, big initiatives that you're excited about, and how could the community help support that?
One of the things that is very, very unique about Helping Restorability, there are not that many agencies out there anymore that do what we do.
Mm,
A couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, there were 134 agencies that provide the type of in-home care that we provide. Today, that's less than 60. So almost over half have closed their doors, gone out of business. Because we do serve people that qualify for Medicaid and Medicaid waiver programs. So the reimbursement rate is very, very low. We rely on donations to support
mm,
the ongoing work that we do, and one of the things that we have had the incredible blessing of our community and our local foundations, that we've been able to do through their donations and generosity, is we have established a research team. And we 3 years ago began working with the University of Notre Dame, and they have a branch of of the University of Notre Dame. It's called Leo, and that team is looking at ways to eradicate poverty and to lift people out of poverty and improve their outcomes in their quality of life. And every year they select, 3 years ago, they selected 6 nonprofits from across the country. And ours was one of the 6 that was chosen.
Wow.
And we worked with their research team for the course of that entire year, looking at how can we take the funds that we get through Medicaid and use them in an innovative way to have better health outcomes for our clients above and beyond what we've ever done before. And through those programs, we now partner with several universities: UNT Health Science Center, Tarleton University, University of Texas at Arlington, UTARI, which is UTA's Research Institute. We have a number of different colleges that we work with and universities. But we started 3 years ago with University of Notre Dame. And what we are doing is we are exploring different ways of training our caregivers so that they are more aware of what kinds of health indicators to look for with the clients that they're working with. So if they can spot a decline in health, let's say somebody has congestive heart failure. What does a decline in health for someone with congestive heart failure look like? What are those health indicators? Are they falling more? They're labored breathing? Their sleep is disturbed, their appetite is down. What are those health indicators that might go, hey, I think in my training, I learned congestive heart failure signs and symptoms of a deterioration look like some of what I'm seeing in you, Mrs. Jones. Let's go ahead and get in to see your primary care doctor, and be proactive, but you have to know what to look for. So training our caregivers, training our clients, educating our families about what to look for, and then the best way to be proactive in taking charge of their own health care. And in the first year alone, we work with managed care companies. And by that, I mean third-party insurance companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield and United Healthcare and Aetna, all the ones that Cigna. And so we, in the first year, for just one of the managed care companies that we work with, we were able to save them almost $4 million, which is great for the managed care company. But what we care about is how did it impact our clients' lives? And we saw a 50% reduction in the use of ERs, or emergency room visits, and almost 100% reduction in the number of days our clients spent in the hospital.
That's huge.
That is huge. So we're leveraging that information that we're learning as we go through this process with the University of Notre Dame and the others that I mentioned. And we're fine-tuning and tweaking and providing even more training to our caregivers. And we're seeing amazing outcomes for our clients. Nobody else in our field is doing this. And so we are then able to take that information and then go talk to another managed care company and say, look what we're doing over here for Aetna. Don't you want to work with us? Don't you want your patients to come to because they do have choices about where they send their patients. So if we can show them a reduction in the amount of ER visits and hospitalization that's needed for the patient, it saves the managed care company money. It provides a definite better quality of life for the clients that we're serving. And the way we are seeing a reward in that, in addition to watching our clients just have amazing health outcomes, is that, the managed care companies will say, okay, for every dollar you save us, we'll give you a tiny little percentage of what you save us. And so we get a percent of what we save the managed care companies. So it's a win for the managed care company. It's a win for Helping Restorability, help support that bottom line of what we're trying. Because what we do as a nonprofit is we reinvest that money that we get from those managed care companies back into additional training and additional ways to support our clients and living their best lives. So I'm just extremely proud about that. And we're seeing more and more of our clients be involved in some of these innovative training programs. And we're seeing their lives change it for the better as a result. So that's very exciting to me.
That's awesome. So I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've seen his TED Talk, but start with your why. I don't have to ask your why, man. It is all over you. It is electric. I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, thank you so much for doing what you do and helping so many people in our community. You are making a difference, and I appreciate you being a guest on this episode.
We're always looking for more people that want to make a difference. So we always have caregiver positions open. In fact, we've got several right now. We've got lead positions open. We've got training positions open. So if you want to get involved and you're looking for, if you've got people listening that are retired and just want to work part-time, or students that need a flexible schedule, as I said, we have people that need support throughout the day, every day. So you could just choose to work a couple of nights a week and go to college during the day, or weekends only, or every other month you want to, pick up a shift. And we're happy to help with flexible scheduling, and we always have clients who are in need of support. So love
And
to have your listeners do that.
folks can learn about that by going to your website.
Yep, helping
Perfect.
hratexas.org.
Okay, we'll be sure to post that when we post the episode, and
Okay.
direct people to HRA. So thank you so much for the time today, and
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. And you let us know how we can keep supporting this vision. It's very exciting, and just really grateful to have folks like you leading the charge.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Yep.
All right, that wraps up our episode. Please join us next time on WP Cares. You can find our podcast on all the major platforms. If you're not already following WP Wealth and Whitley Penn on LinkedIn, all of our episodes we post there. We'll also post a little bit about HRA, the link to the website as we mentioned. Be sure to like, comment, and share, and we'll see you next time. Take care.